The time it happened was a chilly Thursday evening, just as the streetlights flickered on, casting long shadows across the city. That was when everything took a turn that no one saw coming. It started as a routine police stop. At least, that's what the officers claimed. A 22-year-old black man, Isaiah Reynolds, had just stepped out of a sleek, jet-black luxury SUV parked outside a downtown cafe when the flashing red and blue lights lit up the night. Within seconds, two officers stormed toward him, guns drawn. "Hands where we can see them!" one of them barked. Isaiah barely had time to react before he was yanked backwards and slammed against the vehicle. His heart pounded as he felt the cold metal of handcuffs snap around his wrists. Pedestrians froze, some pulling out their phones. "What's going on? What did I do?" Isaiah demanded, his voice edged with panic. One of the cops, Officer Daniels, a burly man with a hardened face, sneered. "You think you can just steal a car like this and get away with it?" Isaiah's mind raced. Steal? He had the keys in his pocket. He had just stepped out of the car, his car. "This is my car," he said through gritted teeth. But the officers weren't listening. "We got a report about this vehicle being stolen," the second cop, Officer Bradley, said as he tightened the cuffs. "And guess what? You match the description." Isaiah's face twisted in disbelief. "A black man? That's the description?" Daniels smirked but didn't answer. Isaiah wasn't dressed like someone trying to steal a car. He wore designer sneakers, a fitted hoodie, and a watch that looked expensive enough to pay off someone's mortgage. But that didn't matter to the cops. "Where's the registration?" Bradley asked, flipping through the glove compartment. Isaiah clenched his jaw. "In my wallet, right pocket." Bradley reached in and pulled it out. His eyes scanned the document, and for a split second his expression faltered. Then his lips tightened. "You're saying this is yours?" he pressed. Isaiah shot him a look. "That's what the registration says, right?" Daniels glanced over his partner's shoulder, his face darkening. They weren't expecting that. Bradley cleared his throat. "Well, the report still stands. This car was flagged as stolen an hour ago." Isaiah's pulse quickened. Something wasn't right. Then came the biggest twist so far. A bystander, a woman in a red coat, stepped forward. "Wait, I saw him park the car. He used a key." Other witnesses murmured in agreement. A few even had video evidence. Officer Daniels hesitated, but then, as if realizing he was losing control of the situation, he yanked Isaiah away from the vehicle. "We'll sort this out at the station," he said. The crowd grew restless. "This isn't right," someone yelled. Isaiah could feel his rage boiling over. "I have proof this car is mine. Run the plates, check my name." But then, before anything else could happen, a sleek black car rolled up, the doors swung open, and out stepped a woman. Not just any woman. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Even the officers looked stunned. She was tall, poised, and dressed in a high-fashion coat with oversized sunglasses shielding her eyes. As she strode forward, she pulled them down just enough to reveal a face that was instantly recognizable. Lena Reynolds, Hollywood superstar, Grammy-winning singer, multi-millionaire, and Isaiah's mother. The officers froze. Lena's sharp gaze locked onto them, her expression unreadable. Then she spoke, her voice calm but laced with steel. "Uncuff my son." The officers hesitated, looking at each other. "Ma'am, this vehicle." Daniels started, but Lena cut him off. "This vehicle," she said coolly, "was a gift to my son. I bought it myself. You want proof? Check the registration. Who's listed as the owner?" Bradley fumbled with the documents, his hands suddenly shaky. His eyes darted to the name at the top of the paperwork. Lena Reynolds. Daniels paled. The murmurs in the crowd grew louder. Some were recording, others were whispering. Did they just accuse a celebrity's son of stealing his own car? Lena's voice turned sharper. "So, officers, I'll ask again. Uncuff my son." Bradley swallowed hard, nodding toward Daniels, who reluctantly pulled out his keys and unlocked the cuffs. Isaiah rubbed his wrists, his eyes burning with a mix of anger and humiliation. He had just been manhandled, accused, and treated like a criminal for driving a car that was his. And the only reason they were backing off now? His mother's fame. Just when it seemed like things couldn't get more intense, Lena's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Her expression changed. Her perfectly composed face turned rigid. Isaiah frowned. "Mom." Lena turned to him, then back at the officers. "You said this car was reported stolen an hour ago?" Daniels nodded warily. Lena held up her phone. "Then tell me why I just got a security alert, saying someone tried to change the ownership of this very vehicle. Remotely?" A beat of silence. Isaiah's stomach twisted. Lena looked at the officers, her gaze dark and knowing. "You weren't going to arrest my son, were you?" she said slowly. "You were covering for someone who actually tried to steal it digitally." The realization crashed down like a hammer. Someone inside the system had flagged the car as stolen, not because it was, but because they wanted to take it. And the cops? They were just pawns in a much bigger game. Isaiah's hands curled into fists. This wasn't just about a traffic stop anymore. It was about power, corruption, a setup that went deeper than anyone expected. Lena slid her phone into her pocket, then took a step closer to the officers. Her voice was quiet, but deadly. "You have no idea who you just messed with." The officers stiffened. The weight of the moment sank in. And then, a black SUV pulled up across the street. The tinted window rolled down. A shadowy figure inside watched them. Isaiah saw it. Lena saw it. Whoever was behind this, they weren't done yet. The black SUV across the street sat in eerie silence, its tinted windows reflecting the flashing red and blue lights. Isaiah could feel a presence watching them. His mother had noticed it too. The cops, Daniels and Bradley, shifted uneasily, as if they suddenly realized they weren't just dealing with an ordinary celebrity scandal. Then, the SUV's engine revved. Lena moved fast. She grabbed Isaiah's arm and pulled him back. The car lurched forward. Tires screeched. Someone in the crowd screamed. Officer Daniels barely had time to react before the SUV sped past, grazing his side and knocking him off balance. Bradley pulled his gun, but it was too late. The vehicle swerved hard around the corner and disappeared into the city streets. For a long moment, there was only the sound of Isaiah's pounding heart. Then Lena muttered under her breath, "We need to go. Now." Minutes later, Lena's private security team arrived. A black Cadillac Escalade rolled up, and a man in a suit stepped out. Marcus, Lena's longtime head of security. He didn't waste time. "Ms. Reynolds, we need to get you and Isaiah somewhere safe." Lena nodded. "I know." Isaiah, still rattled, looked between them. "What the hell just happened? Who was that?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "We don't know. But that wasn't just some random bystander. Whoever it was, they were watching." The cops, still reeling from the near hit, seemed as if they wanted to say something, but Lena turned to them with an icy stare. "I assume this little misunderstanding is resolved now?" Bradley, still holding the car's registration, swallowed hard. "Yes, ma'am." But Daniels, who had been knocked to the ground moments ago, wasn't convinced. He dusted himself off, his eyes dark and unreadable. "Ms. Reynolds," he said carefully, This doesn't make sense. If the car wasn't actually stolen, then why would someone flag it? And why would someone be waiting here to watch the arrest?" Lena studied him. Then she said something that made Isaiah's stomach drop. "Because," she murmured, "someone wanted my son out of the way." The ride to Lena's estate was tense. Isaiah sat in the back seat of the Escalade, his mother beside him, her lips pressed in a thin line. Finally, he broke the silence. "Mom, what aren't you telling me?" Lena exhaled sharply. Isaiah, I never wanted to pull you into this. That's not an answer. She turned to him, her expression unreadable. Then softly she said, Someone's been watching me for a while now. Isaiah's breath hitched. Watching you? Lena nodded. Strange things have been happening. My emails being accessed, security alarms being triggered in the middle of the night, and now, this. She gestured toward him. A fake car theft report? A mysterious SUV waiting in the shadows? It's not random. It's a message. Isaiah's blood ran cold. What kind of message? Lena hesitated. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, It's about your father. Isaiah's pulse stopped. He swallowed hard. Mom, my father is dead. Lena didn't speak. Instead, she pulled out her phone, scrolled quickly through her messages, then handed the device to him. Isaiah stared at the screen. It was an email, sent just 3 days ago. No sender name, no traceable address, just 2 words. He's alive. Isaiah couldn't breathe. This had to be a joke, a scam. His father had died when he was 3, or at least, that's what he had always been told. His eyes shot up to his mother's. Is this real? Lena closed her eyes, as if she had been dreading this moment. I don't know, she admitted. But if it is, then this isn't just about the car. Isaiah felt like the ground had disappeared from under him. If his father was alive, who had faked his death? And why? Just as the Escalade pulled through the iron gates of Lena's sprawling estate, Marcus's phone rang. He answered immediately. This is Marcus, he said briskly. A pause. Then his face drained of color. Isaiah and Lena exchanged glances. What is it? Lena pressed. Marcus lowered the phone, his grip tightening. We traced the stolen car report, he said. It wasn't random. Lena's expression darkened. Then who flagged it? Marcus hesitated. Then he spoke. It was filed by the FBI. Isaiah's entire body went cold. The FBI? He echoed. Marcus nodded, looking grim. But here's the thing. The case was sealed. No officer should have been able to see it. Someone intentionally let it slip through the cracks so the police would get involved. Isaiah's stomach turned. It hadn't just been a setup. It had been a distraction. Lena wasted no time. She grabbed her phone, her fingers moving quickly as she dialed a number. The line rang once, twice. Then a voice picked up. You shouldn't have pushed this far, Lena. Isaiah's breath caught. The voice was deep, smooth, and terrifyingly calm. His mother's hand trembled as she gripped the phone. You listen to me, she hissed. I don't know who you are, but if you think... You don't know? The voice chuckled. Oh, Lena, you've always known. A pause. Then, tell your son to be careful, because next time, I won't just take the car. Click. Silence. Isaiah's hands clenched into fists. Whoever was behind this didn't just want to frame him, they wanted to erase him. His heart pounded as he turned to his mother. Mom, he said slowly. Who was that? Lena didn't look at him. She just stared at the phone, her lips slightly parted. Finally, she whispered the words that changed everything. Your father. Isaiah's breath left his lungs. The room was spinning. That voice. That threat. His father wasn't just alive. He was the one hunting them. Isaiah felt his world tilt, his stomach clenched, his mind scrambling to process what he'd just heard. His father was alive? And worse, he was the one behind everything? The air in the room felt suffocating. Lena slowly lowered the phone, her fingers trembling. Isaiah had never seen his mother look like this. So shaken, so afraid. Mom, he forced out, his voice hoarse. What are you talking about? Lena exhaled sharply. She pressed her fingers to her temple, then looked up at him with tired, wary eyes. There's a lot I never told you, Isaiah, she said softly. Isaiah's pulse pounded. Like what? She hesitated. Then, with a deep breath, she finally said it. Your father wasn't just some ordinary man. He worked for the government, deep, the kind of work where you don't get to walk away. The words sliced through him like a blade. Isaiah staggered back. So, what? They faked his death. Lena nodded. I thought he was gone. I thought we were safe. But if he's back now, and if he's coming for you... Her voice wavered. Isaiah swallowed, his throat dry. Then? Lena's eyes darkened. Then we're all in danger. Marcus, still on edge, turned to Lena. We need to go. If this is what I think it is... He was cut off by a sharp buzzing sound. Everyone's phones lit up at once, a single text message. Isaiah's hands shook as he looked down at his screen. Too late. Then, the power went out. Darkness swallowed the estate. The security alarms blared to life, followed by the sound of shattering glass. They were here. Isaiah barely had time to react before Marcus was moving. He grabbed Lena's wrist and barked, "We're leaving!" Now. But Isaiah was frozen. His mind screamed at him to move, to run. But who were they running from? Gunshots rang out from the front gate. Security guards shouted orders, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Then, footsteps, heavy, fast, coming straight for them. Isaiah barely had time to react before the front door burst open. 3 armed men in tactical gear stormed inside. Their movements were sharp, trained, not ordinary thugs. One of them stepped forward, and then Isaiah saw him. The man in the center wasn't masked. He wanted to be seen. He was tall, built like someone who had spent years in the field. His hair was graying at the temples, his jaw sharp, his piercing brown eyes locked on Isaiah with an intensity that made his chest tighten. Isaiah knew those eyes, even though he had only seen them in old, faded photographs. His father. Silence. Then, the man smirked. "Hello, son." Lena pushed Isaiah behind her. Her voice was steel. "Stay away from him." His father chuckled. "Oh, Lena. You always were dramatic." His gaze flickered to Isaiah. "I never got the chance to say this before, but you've grown up." Isaiah's chest burned with anger. "You had 20 years. His fists clenched. "Where the hell were you?" His father's smirk faded. "You wouldn't understand." Isaiah stepped forward, his heart hammering. "Try me." His father sighed, glancing at the armed men around him. Then, in a low voice, he said something that made Isaiah's blood run cold. "Son, I faked my death to protect you, but someone found out, and now they want you dead." Isaiah's breath caught. "What?" His father glanced at Lena, then back at him. "They think I told you something. Something I never should have known." Lena stiffened. "Who?" His father's jaw tightened. "The government." The room felt like it cracked apart. Isaiah's head spun. "You're saying the FBI?" "It's bigger than the FBI." His father's voice was grave. "There's a hidden division, black ops off the books. They don't exist on paper, but trust me, they're real. And they think I told you something that could expose them." Isaiah's skin crawled. "They tried to frame you with the stolen car report," his father continued. "It was never about the car. It was about seeing if you had the information." Isaiah exhaled shakily. "And if I don't?" His father's lips pressed into a thin line. "They'll kill you anyway, just to be sure." Lena's hands balled into fists. "Why now? Why come back after all these years?" His father met her gaze. Because, he said, they were never looking for me. They were always looking for him. Isaiah's breath hitched. Me? His father nodded. They think I hid the information inside you. Maybe a message I left you when you were younger. Maybe something coded in a letter, a gift. I don't know. But they won't stop until they find it, or until they bury you to make sure it's gone forever. Isaiah's stomach churned. His whole life he had thought his father was dead. But now, standing in front of him, hearing these words, it was worse. Because now he wasn't just the son of a missing man, he was a target. The gunfire outside intensified. "We need to move," Marcus snapped. "We don't have time for this." His father stepped forward. "Come with me." Isaiah tensed. Lena grabbed his arm. "No." His father's eyes darkened. "Lena, if he stays, they will kill him." Tension thickened in the air. Isaiah looked between them. His mother, his protector, his father, a ghost from the past. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to run. But run where? He took a shaky breath. "If I leave, do I ever get to come back?" His father didn't answer, and that was enough. Isaiah took a step back. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. "No." His father's expression hardened. "Isaiah, I don't care what they're after," Isaiah cut him off. "I'm not running, and I'm not letting you drag me into whatever this is." His father's jaw clenched. Then he sighed. "You're stubborn, just like your mother." The gunfire outside suddenly stopped. Isaiah turned toward the window, and his breath left his lungs. A fleet of black SUVs had arrived. Armed agents in tactical gear swarmed the estate. This wasn't just a hit squad. This was the government, and they were here for him. Isaiah turned back to his father. "What do we do now?" His father pulled a gun from his belt and cocked it. "We fight."